love stories. Heroes go on adventures in other worlds, defy insurmountable odds. Stories are like the living thing. My father, he wrote me. Said we have a secret legacy, a birthright that's been kept from us in Lovecraft country.
That place, it's not real.
You sure?
They don't like outsiders at all. I found more than a few stories about travelers being attacked in the surrounding woods.
By what?
Gotta go, right now, gotta go.
I know we were all meant to go through trials and tribulations. But this world is haunting us.
It'll come back around it.
It's like the devil.
The American dream.
Depends on the question, what is reality? What is reality?
Gotta go, right now, gotta go.
All right. What's going on, world? It's your boy, Patrick Michael Strange. This is the Nerds of Color, New Release Wednesday and Quirktastic. We are the Blurs in Lovecraft Country, and I've got some amazing folks joining me right now to talk about Lovecraft Country. But before we get into it, let me let them introduce themselves and their dopeness, their fire, these Blurs, amazing Blurs. Go ahead, Bree.
Hello, I'm Bree, known as Baroness Bree. I host a Fabulous Fuckery podcast, and I am so excited to be here.
Hi, folks. This is Tom Delphi, Executive Director of the Nerdtino Expo, the first East Coast Latinx comic book convention, and the Geek Moriarty of Philadelphia.
Blup, 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 blup.
Go ahead, Greg.
My name is Greg Burnham. I'm a writer, publisher, editor. I work on Tuskegee Air's comic book.
Oh, nice.
The Search for Sadaka. I have some children's books and some other stuff that's popping off too. How y'all doing?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yay!
Yes.
Awesome. I'm Sabrina. I am the Blurred Mom. I host the Blurred Mom podcast. And my co-host over here.
How you doing? I'm Mr. Blurred Mom.
This is Will.
Ain't that a song by Lone Star?
So shout out to these amazing Blurs. We just enjoyed Lovecraft Country. But before we get into Lovecraft Country, my man Thomas with Nerdtino is going to talk a little bit about Lovecraft since he's, well, I don't know about Sabrina. We didn't get into Sabrina yet about her Lovecraft experience, but Thomas is a true Lovecraft guy. I really didn't read a lot of the books. I don't think Bree or Greg did either, but Thomas, go ahead.
All right. So, H.P. Lovecraft. This dude is basically the godfather of, like, modern weird science fiction. He was an early 20th century author who he's the father of the Cthulhu mythos, and he introduced the concept into modern science fiction and horror of the eldritch unknown, which is the idea that yes, there are monsters out there. They happen to be gods, and they're a lot bigger than you. So it was this larger idea and this larger cosmology and universe, and he was responsible for. Now, he didn't write any books. He created short stories, and he would, he would submit them to different science fiction magazines of the era. And, he interacted with all these different guys, the creator of Conan the Barbarian, August Derleth, and, he really introduced this alien god concept. And there are some incredible classic stories. Of course, The Call of Cthulhu, The Horror at Red Hook, the music of Eric Zahn, The Shadow over Innsmouth, my favorite story, and Dagon. And what's more than that is that he was part of a classical concept of science fiction and fantasy author where he incorporated these ancient concepts and like religions, mythologies, and he repurposed them to create his mythos. And and that was part of his heritage in part of his heritage in New England. He came from a family of scholars, and he grew up as a child, living basically in his grandfather's library, which was filled with these forbidden books. And he used this knowledge and this appreciation of this knowledge to build his mythos. And he basically, over time, became one of the most celebrated authors of his era, although, like many Gothic horror and fantasy authors before the modern 20th century, he died in poverty. So he has been a major inspiration for science fiction and fantasy in the modern era. All of this stuff is now produced through Arkham House. Or it always has been. Actually, that's fascinating. Arkham House has been like the one consistent proprietary publisher of Lovecraft's works for almost 100 years. I actually got to meet the guy that's in charge of it at Steampunk World's Fair a long, long time ago. But Lovecraft is also notable for some controversy in that when you read his works and you look at some of his language and his personal writings, he was a racist. Now, in his writings, he would often have dark and swarthy foreigners as, there aren't really antagonists or protagonists in the Lovecraft story. It's just the gods and the victims, right? And, he would often use people of color and people from foreign lands that were, now in his time period immigrating to the United States as the introducers of this foreign corruption, right? And it's complicated when you understand when you look at his history, because one, you appreciate the work, but you also understand that what he is writing is highly problematic. And part of it stems from the fact that this dude was your original anxious goth kid, right? This was your greasy-haired nerd sitting in the corner who was antisocial even to other nerds, that was scared of everything. If you want to understand the vein of the racism that's in his books or in his literature, you need to read the horror at Red Hook, which was based on his experience of living in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and how he was this, skinny little New England white man living in this highly diverse, foreign-seeming part of New York at a vulnerable point in his life. So, obviously, not an excuse for the problematic nature of his work, but sort of a diagnostic understanding of, okay, this is where the root of it is. And, of course, there is the name of his cat, which I will leave you guys to Google.
I've seen that. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to say it. Yep.
Nope. This is a family show.
Yep.
But yeah, and having gone through Lovecraft country, going beyond just the element, the aesthetic element of the history and the tension of the era, and how most of the first episode dealt with human horror, there are little touches and nods to Lovecraft's work in this first episode that I was sitting here at the edge of my seat going, there it is! It's that DiCaprio me.
So thank you for that, Thomas, about that kind of a breakdown on H.P. Lovecraft. So when this project was announced as a Lovecraft fan, and so I'm going to kind of start from you and then to everybody else, from what you know of Lovecraft, what was your first thought that this was being made and under my man Jordan Peele, who thrilled us with Get Out and Us and all of his other works, So what was your thought when you heard that this project was coming to be? And then to everybody else, your initial thoughts before we get into our thoughts from watching the first episode.
My first thought was, okay, we'll see. There's been a lot of mishandling of Lovecraftian works over several decades. In that people misunderstand the concept that it's good versus evil, and it's not. Lovecraft is God versus victim. And the cosmic scale of what you're dealing with. And it's like, yeah, you might have lived to the end of the story, but now you realize the earth you tread on is not as stable as you think. And I think we definitely got a taste of that in this first episode, we're gonna see how it plays. You got a dynamic duo of J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele kicking on this. You've got a fantastic looking cast. I'm excited to see where it goes. And trust me, if it's Lovecraft fans, will be speaking out.
Okay. Bree, how about you next?
So when I first heard about this project, I was excited because I'm a huge J.J. Abrams fan. I love Lost. I love how he handled Armageddon. I'm intrigued by how he handled some of the Star Trek movies. He could have did some other things, but his work is typically he does very well to the science fiction genre. So when you add him and Jordan Peele is killing suspense right now. So the two of them together with this beautiful brown cast is just like exciting to me. So as a writer and as a sci-fi lover, this is my shit right here. So I'm excited.
All right. I'm with you. Greg, how about you?
I'm weird. So I've been disappointed so many times in my life that I try to make sure I don't get excited about things anymore.
Yeah.
So when I saw it was coming out, I was like, all right, cool. I'll see you when I see you. And I like that. One of my, actually a showrunner hit me up, after I put something on Facebook. He was like, have you read the book or did you go in blind? And I, did the little gif with Sandra Bullock walking through the woods with the blindfold on. I didn't know what to expect. But it's like for what I do as a writer and, one day, the hopes, is that I'll be writing, doing this. I like going in there without any type of, because then I can just, go in and really evaluate and actually enjoy. So the first time I watch stuff now, I'm not critical. I just kind of watch it and then see how I feel about it. And then I'll go back like the next time I watch it and tear it down and destroy it or build it up. So it was cool for me because, like I said, I was kind of warned by, some of my old heads, dude was racist, don't read that. I was encouraged not to read his stuff. So it was cool. Like the cast is what did it. When I saw who they had, showing up for this cast, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta watch this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sabrina, and I forgot my blurred dad's name over there. Blurred mom dad.
I'm Mr. Blurred Mom. That's cool.
Blurred mom.
Will. Same as Will. So so the only thing I really knew about Lovecraft is, I knew he was racist, but I also, I knew the Cthulhu stuff. And I tried to go in blind, but someone downloaded the audiobook and, turned it on in the car. Now we haven't made it through the whole thing, but I guess we got through like 3 hours of it. So I got, some of the beginning of the story, and I can't help but, compare what happened in the story, to what was happening on the screen. So I try to go in blind, but
what she's trying not to say is that she got a little bit of beef. Oh, that's for the podcast. I'm saying it for the podcast. Okay. All right, never mind.
Exclusive content.
Exclusive. Make sure. Let's go ahead and drop that podcast.
All right, so I'm one of those people. I'm a book person before going into the show, and I am familiar with a little bit of H.P. Lovecraft's books, like Peter Klein's Thomas. I don't know if you've read some of his stuff, The Fold and 14. Ooh. That's like all like H.P. Lovecraft weirdness, right? And so I was really excited for this, and I thought this was good. I enjoyed the episode. I know that there are some deviations from the book because you're going to get that anytime that you have a screenplay, but I think it's going to be a wild ride. We saw some of the monsters that came out in this.
Maybe we saw them. We might.
What happened? What is he talking about? Did something happen? Okay.
No.
Over here. Get out.
So we're gonna keep it for I guess. Yeah, let's keep it. Oh, hey. Hey, Thomas. Hey, Chris. I think your door was ringing, and I got my man Christopher Powell.
You late, bruh.
Black Geeks. What's up, brother?
What's
All right, so Sabrina and Will, thank you. Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then what we're talking about right now is our initial thoughts when Lovecraft Country was announced, what we thought going in before we watched this first episode.
Yeah. Chris, Patrick already said Black Geeks, 1/3 of the 3 Black Geeks. Yeah, I didn't have much. I didn't really feel one way or the other about it and stuff. It's kind of like how I felt with Watchmen. It's kind of like one of those, I need to see the first episode in order to really kind of feel some way. So the only thing I knew about Lovecraft was just various imageries from like different movies and all that stuff. So I didn't have much expectations and stuff. So once they announced the show and it's like, oh, Jordan Peele's on it and Misha Green is in it, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll watch it just to see what happens and stuff. So.
All right. So first 5 minutes, that's what grabs me, and I already proclaimed on Twitter that it's my new favorite show.
Oh my God, that's where all the budget went.
Let's talk as spoiler free as we can. How it just blew our eye holes away with that imagery that we saw. It was just man, amazing. I don't know if we can do it spoiler free without talking about too much.
Right.
But I guess if you're a Lovecraft fan, they just kind of encapsulated everything to grab you, I think, in those first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you remember the Black Wall Street thing from the beginning of Watchmen, I think that was the best thing to do, is kind of get something that really captured everybody's imagination. So it's like, all right, we're gonna do an H.P. Lovecraft version of that, and it's like wacky and crazy as it could possibly be, and yet it works for the time period, the timepiece they're going for. Because I think even, well, never mind, it's spoiling, but like even
I'm gonna say like everything I want to say is a spoiler.
I mean, it definitely captures that kind of like during that time period, the 40s and 50s, that kind of like sci-fi, whimsical, that period of just the pulp comics.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I was gonna say I think that they captured the cinematography of the Chicago area at the time. When you look at, I'm a huge photography buff, and when you look at the photos of what that area looked at like the time, and what they did with the cinematography was amazing. I don't know if you guys noticed, they threw a kind of modern day insert in there, and I was like, okay.
The music.
Yes, the music swapped out for a minute, and you know how they showed the changes in the geographic. I'm like, okay. I said, I see what y'all are doing here. Something about to happen really cool. But I really love the cinematography. They did the best lighting. Black people are the hardest people to light, is what I've been told. True. And everybody looked beautiful. And people of color, they look gorgeous. So I was very excited to see that. I'm like, yay, no dark shadows. So, and it was very dark. So for the movie to be that dark and you be able to see every character's expression, to see every character's movements, what they had on, you're like, okay, all right. So I enjoyed that.
Cool. Just the color aesthetic of the entire scenes, and like the opening scene with the block party, just like the pop of it was overwhelming and beautiful.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah, visually.
I will say.
There was a scene in the book that I thought they had just captured extremely well. That whole chase scene that was in there, that was just captured extremely well. And that's how I actually pictured it in my mind from the book. And actually seeing it on the screen was pretty awesome.
The car chase. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, interesting bit. That whole thing with the firemen sitting in front of the firehouse, that's a reference to a character in Shadow over Innsmouth. There's actually a few subtle things in the journey of Atticus, in that he's going on sort of a genealogical quest, which is a very Lovecraftian concept. That's how many of these protagonists, which were a lot of self-inserts for Lovecraft, started their journey. And the whole bit with the guy sitting outside the firehouse is how one of Lovecraft's characters identified someone that eventually filled him in on the story of Innsmouth and was one of the leads towards the deeper horror of the town. So yeah, there's a lot of subtle touches in there.
Okay. I have a question. Were most of Lovecraft's stuff, was it mostly set in New England?
It was primarily set in New England between 2 cities. Well, primarily one city, Arkham, which was based on Massachusetts. Arkham, which is a traditional name for New York, which is another name for New York, also known as Gotham City, was the primarily where he based his story. There's also a series of outlying towns, Dunwich, Innsmouth, that were part of larger, almost Arkham County or Arkham Country.
Okay.
Which is where they got the title.
Cool. So it's kind of like what Stephen King did with the Derry.
Actually, that
area.
Stephen King is basically a Lovecraftian writer. That's the vein of horror that he's in. He is basically lifting from that genre and from the concepts that Lovecraft and his colleagues pioneered.
This is so cool. We have a Lovecraft historian on. That's so dope.
I got the Grunkle Stat on.
I love that show.
Oh my God. Gravity Falls is also very Lovecraftian. Bill Cipher is basically Bill Cipher is basically a Lovecraftian god. The whole and that's what makes loving Lovecraft so hard. He's responsible for so much media that you love, but you also understand the guy was flawed. And like, I would encourage everyone on this episode to read some of his stuff, not just the Cthulhu mythos, specifically like the horror of Red Hook.
Yeah, you're going in and out. I think.
Is he freezing for y'all? Okay, he's freezing.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, racist white guy who was terrified of freaking everything, and
hey, we're kind of losing you, Thomas.
Thomas, we can't hear you, honey.
So real quick, we got Moana McAdams from Burning Spear. Moana, can you hear me? She just joined in. Moana, I guess you're just listening. Anyway, we'll welcome Moana. More amazing blurs coming on here. So let's move on to this amazing cast. Since we're trying to be careful and keep it spoiler free, let's talk about just some of the amazing casts that were involved with this. For me, the kind of the male lead, Jonathan Majors. I recently enjoyed his performance on The Five Bloods that was on Netflix. Once I saw that, and after seeing Last Black Man in San Francisco,
that's what I was gonna say.
He was amazing in that. But again, he stole the show with Delroy Lindo in The Five Bloods recently, because that's fresh right now. But if you haven't seen Last Black Man in San Francisco, go see that.
Please watch it.
It's so good.
But what did you think of Jonathan Majors' performance, and as well as the amazing Courtney B. Vance? Man, he just blew me away seeing him back again, and Journey Smollett. But I'm gonna throw this up. I want to have you guys talk. But again, Jonathan Majors is amazing. But who else? Who else stole the show for you? And what did you think of their performances?
Oh man, Jonathan Majors, like the first thing I really recognized him in is The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and he was amazing in there. He's very captivating. He's like emotional, but he doesn't go over the top with it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
When I saw, like I said, I saw the cast, and you already know what Journey does. She's been doing that for what?
Her whole life.
5.
Yeah.
You know, Courtney B. Vance. It was like, I don't know, man. The cast was excellent. And acting is big for me. I'm sure it is for you too, Patrick. Like if you're not, it's like it's hard for me to stay engaged if I feel like people are just reading their lines.
Yeah.
But they were like immersed in their characters. It was well written. The cast was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the acting was very, very good. This is the first time I've seen Jonathan Majors, so I haven't seen any of those other things. I should go back and check those out. But I was really interested in the character of Letitia because in the book she really grabbed me, and like from the beginning. I'm waiting for that feeling to come, but because in the book she was my girl. But yeah, everybody I thought was good. Of course, Courtney Vance is great.
Legend.
He's a fucking legend.
Right.
He's a legend. And I hadn't seen what's his wife's name?
Angela.
Angela Bassett.
No.
Ellis, Anjanou Ellis.
Ingenue.
Ingenue
Yeah, I
Ellis,
hadn't
yeah.
seen her in a while,
Yeah.
but yeah, she's awesome. Yes. Are you raising your hand?
I'm raising my hand.
Hi, Blur Dad. What you need, honey?
Was I the only one who was wondering if that was a prosthetic, or did Courtney B. Vance grow that
Listen,
dad gut?
Leave him alone. He can grow whatever body he wants to.
We're
A legend.
you know, listen, he's a legend. We're in quarantine. There's no
Yes.
judgment here. And then also they were in the 1940s and 50s.
I wasn't judging. I was just asking a question.
Listen, sir.
Right.
We are acting. They're thespians. This is theater. This is what you do to encompass the role. And he put on the appropriate weight.
Right.
Are we weight shaming?
No, I just had a legitimate question.
Was I the only one that wanted to see more of the daughter, like his daughter, as somebody who puts, does a lot of like, young girls in comics and everything.
Yeah.
And then she was writing the comic. I was like, she looks like she would probably be my best friend out of all of them. So
I don't think there's no way we don't see her again.
Yeah, no, and the wife, because the wife is a genius. I mean, she's an astrologer, so it's going to be really dope. It's the boss.
What are you
Hey,
doing?
boss.
Oh no!
Look at all these people. I feel like I had stepped into an AA meeting. Who got the chip? Like, oh damn, it ain't AA.
So we've been trying to keep it spoiler free for you, so that way we can post this up next week. So just FYI.
Oh, okay. This is spoiler free joint. Okay. All right.
Wait, you got some Ciroc? What's going on over there? Let me see.
Let's see.
Hey.
Whoa.
It's just like we're at BlurCon. It's the bar in Hiltonsville.
Yep.
Digital BlurCon.
Something to get my nerves down after all that horror and mystery and terror. Just got my blood pressure up.
And thank you so much for coordinating this for us, because this was such a dope opportunity. So thank you for thinking of us and allowing us to be a part of this.
Oh no, you guys are the stars. I told them that there's a whole hidden treasure trove of talent out there in the nerd community, and in the blurred community. There's a lot of folks that have just never been called upon to do a screening. Who've never been called upon to check this stuff out. What do you stop? You look at Thomas. Can y'all see Thomas over here?
Yes, we can see this fool.
So this is. I feel like you just cornered Indiana Jones and you're about to monologue.
So first, my apologies for cutting out. Skype does not work on my laptop. And this is my statue of Cthulhu, the great god of Lovecraft.
Should we be concerned? That's the
yes,
key.
we
That's
should.
Maybe a little.
I can take down my pallid. My original plan was to come back on this episode wearing my pallid mask, which is a reference to Nyarla Thotep, Chaos God, Crawling Chaos.
Okay, right. So I see that. I feel like the kid that didn't study for the AP exam, and and I'm sitting next to the brainy kid.
You guys seriously want a rough Lovecraft reading list? I'll give it to you right now.
No. I am very comfortable having the full extent of my Lovecraft knowledge be represented within the context of this show. Because listen, as a nerd and as somebody who played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, fantasy games from the second grade on up, the weird dudes was those Lovecraft dudes in the corner, man. I'm telling you, they always had something to say, but they knew they was gonna blow everybody's mind. It'd be like you'd always had that kid that got through book 1 of Lord of the Rings, and they'd be playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they'd be like, yeah, that's an orc, I know what that is, and oh, that's a drow, blah blah blah. But then this brother over here with the Lovecraft books, he'd be like, oh, y'all don't know nothing, man. I got what y'all ain't ready for this.
So
and here he is, an adult on my street. I cannot escape you.
So Hilton, you jumped in on as we were talking about some of the amazing cast. in Lovecraft Country, like Jonathan Majors, Journey Smollett, Courtney B. Vance, Anjanou Ellis. Who was your favorite character in the first episode thus far?
It has to be Journey. Journey, she just explodes on the screen the minute she shows up. I mean, like if you watch the scene when she shows up, the first thing that happens is the car parks the wrong way, dropping her off. The cop is like, "Yo, you can't." Like, so she starts off her entrance breaking the rules. She gets there halfway into her sister's concert, and then jumps on the stage and is singing. Obviously, there was nobody expecting her. And you saw the episode. She was a member of the science club. She was all-star track. She's fearless. She's like, not trying to conform to any of these rules, both between her and the men in the group and her and the Jim Crow society that they're exploring. And she just has that most dynamic entrance. So for episode 1, she's the MVP in my book.
I really liked how the intersectionality thing came up, right? Not only am I Black, but I'm also a woman. You know what I'm saying? That was really cool. Something that, as an older person, we're still learning about, because, Black women have been so underrepresented, so I thought that was awesome.
Mm-hmm. I love how she's just fearless, and like somebody stares at her, she's gonna stare right back at them. She's not messing with y'all.
I mean, she's definitely badass.
In that chase scene, I liked how she was behind the wheel of the car. That was cool.
Yeah, she like, get in the fucking car. Go.
Yeah. Get the fuck out. You gotta get the fuck out. Yeah, that was awesome.
No, she saved the day. Completely.
I thought she was gonna leave him for a second.
Yeah.
You see the gender roles playing out. Even in this emergency, you got this brother who you hear in the episode got both his knees blown out, right? Mm-hmm. So he can't really run. He's probably not the best person to be in charge of the escaping. Right, she's in the car. The trucks are pulling up with the sirens and the rifles going off, and he's steady trying to scoot over. Let me drive.
Right.
She's like, if you don't get in this car, so we can pull off.
No,
so the gender roles are still even trying to be at play, even in the case of an emergency within the group, and she's fighting at it at every turn. And yeah, so just when she showed up,
even him, like trying to tell her how to drive, and she's like, "There's a lot." Yeah, it's a lot to process.
I appreciated, again, like Watchmen, and I want a lot of these shows to keep that same energy. Is that they didn't pull any punches for the time period, like at all. Like there was no like, "Oh, we're gonna sanitize a little bit." No, it's like in your face, like straight up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think there's an interesting analysis you can make with sort of the interaction briefly between her and Atticus and went during that chase. Whereas again, the uncle was like, "Give me the wheel, let me take the wheel." Mm-hmm. And look at, are you folks familiar with the conceptual term of the new African American man?
Sounds familiar, but sounds like you got it.
History time. So after World War I and World War II, there was a generational difference. There was a generational difference you saw with some African American men that had gone to war and come back, between the older generation, which lent much more towards patriarchal concepts, and the idea was that you had these new generation of men that had served their country and had been in these dangerous situations, but also had a larger vision of the world and a larger vision of the idea of, we're all fighting alongside each other and, towards this goal, towards safety, towards everybody making it out alive. And, again, you've got the uncle who's, this older character's like, "Give me the wheel, let me take the wheel." And you have Atticus like, "Take the gun."
Yeah.
And like that.
Yeah. I didn't even peep that. Yeah.
Yeah. You also see that in the scene with the officers, and Courtney B. Vance is kind of like, "Officer, this is just a misunderstanding. It's okay." And Atticus is like, "Hey, if you just look in the car," and that was more threatening to the officers than Uncle George's kind of it's okay, kind of attitude. So yeah.
Well, you're also talking about a period of time where when that first round of African American men that went to World War II and saw the world outside of the Jim Crow era, even in white Europe where they were fighting, and then came home expecting to have experienced some sort of liberation for their service or their meritorious patriotism and all of that stuff, were actually more likely to get attacked and lynched and murdered for even demonstrating that they had served in the military and fought in the war. They were seen as more dangerous because this black man knows how to operate a gun. He knows how to fight. You're more.
That was what they did to us also, because they put us in the worst situations, put us in like death traps, front line type stuff. So they're thinking about that. Yeah.
But see that
makes you think about now.
He had a sense of that. You could tell that he was dealing with two different generations of black men, and that's why he zeroed in on Atticus.
Yep.
And it was kind of like needling him and kind of targeting him, and didn't really like when Uncle George fell. Nobody even paid no attention to him.
Right?
They never took the gun off Atticus. I mean, even when he was turning into a monster, the cop was like, "I got to watch you." Yeah, he's turned into a demon, but I got to watch you, black man.
Right.
You can tell that was being it's deliberate and script, obviously, but you saw that he had like a different kind of indignation for being subjugated in this way, and his uncle did.
But this is what we're dealing with now. So we have people who have served modern day who are being deported. They've served our country and they're being deported. So this is like a play on kind of what's happening now. When you saw the Aunt Your Mama sign, I don't know if
did you see that? Yeah. I was like, okay, we just got deeper.
Right, I was like,
got deeper.
Right, okay. So so it's like how they're saying that things never change. So it's like, okay, let's keep going back. And so it was a scene where Courtney was like, "You need to shoot him. Like, what are you talking about? What you pointing a gun at me for?" So it's like,
that was my joint.
That scene, it was like, okay, I see. Like, this is a great way to show that these things are still happening. And I think at this current climate, this is an amazing time for them to still decide they're still going to air this show with everything going on politically in this country.
Yeah.
Not only am I black and scared, but now I got to run from aliens and shit. So that means the aliens is coming, and I'm not ready.
Right.
I got enough shit to deal with.
I had a question for the group. So, has everyone here seen Stranger Things?
Hell yeah.
How do the two compare as cultural period pieces of horror, and in general, how's the first episode of Stranger Things compare to this? Because one thing I liked about looking at this first episode was that, again, there's these little nods to horror. Obviously, you've got the references to Lovecraft, the thing I mentioned with the firehouse, the genealogical journey, but also when they're running out into the little cabin in the woods, and I'm like, Evil Dead, there it is. Or, the Night of the Living Dead, and feeling out those vibes. So what comparing that to something like Stranger Things, which is in the 80s, how do you guys feel?
I mean, I got kind of a Goonies vibe at some point during this episode, so I can definitely see the comparisons and stuff. It's kind of tough because with everything this first episode sets up, I think it's going to be the next, maybe 2 episodes, we'll get a real general idea if it really hits that level of Stranger Things. But like I said, up front, in terms of it showing that horror element in that time period, it definitely nails it. Because like I said earlier, it has that kind of pulp, kind of sensibilities about it. So that horror aspect definitely nails it a little bit better than, better than Stranger Things, because Stranger Things is going from a different angle of horror. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like this one a little bit better than Stranger Things, just a little bit.
I'll tell you right now, because I understand why Thomas asked this question, is because these 2 first episodes of both these shows, to different degrees and in different ways, exploded. You know, this is not like Game of Thrones where you got to watch 5 episodes before things really start kicking in and happening. Things are happening right now. Run,
Right.
you know, it's like, and I got to give it to Lovecraft Country because they are telling a story within the confines of a honestly told period piece. Whereas with Stranger Things, they could have made that world that the characters were being put in anything they wanted. And they weren't constrained with anything, you know, not even the city, anything, just the pulp of the era is all they really had to adhere to before, you know, the actual character development. And you can imagine trying to bring to the screen all the different layers of characters and background and foreshadowing and horror. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Just with this one episode, this story would have been almost, you know, I won't even say that. This episode would have been just as scary if there were no monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If there had no monsters, no magic, nothing, this would have been just as scary because because the scenario is playing out in a realistic fashion. You know, that the real Jim Crow and the real you know, metaphorical Green Book, you know, your life could depend on what door you knock on if you're looking for a place to stay or a place to eat or a place to get gas or whatever when you're traveling outside of chocolate cities like Chicago, Philly, New York, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, I'm watching it and I'm like, you know, I'm almost relieved when the monsters show up, not because they're killing, you know, the bad cops and stuff so much as, okay, now there's evil that's supposed to be evil.
Right.
Yeah. It's true.
Like everyone agrees that the monsters biting people in half is bad for everybody's health, right? You know, so this is the first, they actually are the first thing in this whole show that level the playing field for everyone. Like, oh wait, well, for this we're equal in the eyes of these monsters that's trying to kill us.
But are we?
For that.
Well, you know, I thought about when they were going through Sundown, and he's like, you know, all right, y'all, it's time. You know, you got this amount of time. I have experienced that. So as a black person, I have been in Henrico County, Virginia, when they come behind, you know, they come from behind signs and behind trees. You're like, where the hell did that cop come from? And you know, so you know, you've experienced, as a black person, I've experienced the fear of a cop following you for 20 miles at 18 miles per hour, because if you go 20 miles, you're going to get a ticket. So, you know, that experience was real. So then, like, to turn back to what Thomas said, Stranger Things was a different era. So it's like that whole change of, you know, we clearly defined, weren't quite sure who the evil thing was in Stranger Things. We just knew it was doing stuff to kids. That suspense was there. But here it's all clear in the first episode. This is the monster. This is the time period. This is what's wrong all right now. Like, to lay all of that framework in the first, 45 minutes? It's very rare. And for J.J. Abrams, that means he is learning something, because he normally takes 15 fucking seasons.
And
JJ takes his time. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 17.
Lost. I am still angry about Lost. I have Lost.
You too?
Damn.
I wrote letters.
They put the can of worms.
I wrote letters about Lost when he
helps. I think it helps in this instance.
Yeah, you know what? I still have not forgiven Linda Loft.
Oh Lord.
I mean, I think it helps JJ though in this instance. Like, you have an actual writer's room full of people that have like different points of view. So somebody, it's kind of like with my thing with Zack Snyder. You need somebody to say no.
No.
Yeah.
So with him, I'm pretty sure JJ could have went a different direction. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure he doesn't really have much of a huge pull on the show. But granted, there's somebody in that room like, it's a good idea, JJ, but no, we're not going to go with that. Like,
well, and it's Misha, because Misha was the writer on Underground. So to have Misha in there and be like, listen, get your act together. This ain't right. This is not black. This is not authentic. So to have people, it really means something to have writers of color in the room when you're creating these types of stories.
Absolutely. All I'm going to say is, to Hilton is, you might think that you know who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, but don't be too surprised if some things change.
Oh, always.
Oh yeah, I'm fully expecting everything that I think I know based on this episode to turn completely around, and that excites me. You know, if I think I know everything that's going to happen in a show, in the first episode and the show proves me right, I'm disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I love being surprised. I love being blindsided. And, you know, like one of the things about this show that came out in this first episode that I noticed is that there is if you watch and you listen to the characters interact, especially Atticus and his uncle, there's almost an understanding that they live in a world that has magic and monsters. You know, they actually say, well, that's Lovecraft country. And you don't know what they mean. Are they talking about Lovecraft country as a metaphor for his white supremacist views, or because of the monsters that he created? And it turns out that they're both right, whichever interpretation you took from that. But then they've got this atlas and they got this map that's got like monsters, you know, here and here and here based on legends and stuff that they read up upon. Yep. And here they go finding out that some of that is actually turning out to be real. And it's like, okay, so, you know, they're living in this world where there's at least in the back of their mind, there's some sense that, yes, magic and monsters and sorcery and all that stuff has some basis in reality. And that's why we don't want to go over there. Well, that's why we don't want to take that road, in addition to white supremacy and Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera. It's just this dual thing. You've got a cup of this and a cup of this almost in equal doses. You know,
and with that, like when you compare it to Stranger Things, I think it compares because you know they started off playing Dungeons and Dragons, and so what Hilton said, that both shows, you know, people are already accepting of, you know, these potential mysteries or monsters, horror, whatever you want to call it. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with Stranger Things is the care that they took. You know, as somebody that grew up in the 80s, you know, the music, like everything. And I see that with Lovecraft as well. It's like the care and the accuracy, like I don't know how they made Chicago look old, but they did, you know, but it's like that's the stuff that as a writer, I really appreciate. They took their time to, you know, not just throw something together, but to actually, you know, make it accurate.
Yeah, I also think it doesn't.
I think to compare and contrast Lovecraft with Stranger Things. I think with Stranger Things, I felt nostalgic. You know, I'm a Gen X, 80s, sorry, all that stuff. I really felt nostalgic. But with Lovecraft, I think to Hilton's point, it was the specter of some looming thing in the background, like this low frequency hum that something's just not right with what's going on. And like, you know, Sabrina and I read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Wasn't a lot of gore, wasn't a lot of horror, but the whole book, you felt like you were spooky, like there's something spooky and not right with the world. And that's kind of like what happened up until the point where you started finding things coming out at you in this episode. And so I think, you know, to that point, I think Lovecraft, they pulled it off. They did a good job on that.
I mean,
the silver car.
Yeah.
Saw the movie The Car.
Yep.
It was like, you know, the silver car comes out of nowhere. That scene was just like, yes. You know,
the car is like a character unto itself. You know, when someone stepped out of the car, I was almost disappointed because I was kind of like, okay, you saw the car sitting, you know, in the parking lot, kind of looming in the background or whatever, and I'm like, oh, the car is actually being driven by someone. That's fine, but I was kind of like, okay, the car is itself, and then it's, you know, it's got its own thing going. But I also the thing about this period piece is that the 1950s is not a familiar era in civil rights history to a lot of people. When we think of the civil rights era, we always go to the 60s, you know, and the freedom marches and everything post Emmett Till, you know, forward. This is prior to that. You know, there's no marches. There's no Martin Luther King. You know, I'm not even sure if they've gotten, you know, like the sense of freedom and the sense of escape come from the military, and those opportunities that they haven't yet found out are not the keys to their entire freedom. So I'm learning. I'm like, okay, 1952, 1953 in Chicago, you know, this is what the music sound. This is what they were listening to. This is how they were dressing. This is how they were dancing. You know, this is what cars look like and sound like and drove like. And so I'm being introduced to an era that's not as familiar as if it were like a 1965 period piece that, you know, you see in all the documentaries and stuff. So I'm already on my heels, because, I know that there's racism, but I don't know just how blatant it is a decade before we really started the open fight for civil rights. And to see that kind of like demonstrated, and because they're not in Alabama, they're still in the North.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting treated, because we had this illusion that the South versus the North was enlightened and all this stuff. They was going from Chicago to Massachusetts. They was coming under Lake Michigan and Ohio. And, those are supposed to be the North. This is the top of the country, and they still getting chased down. It's like the way it went down. It's like, is that Montgomery, Alabama? What is going on? Like, no, like these dudes are in the middle of flat Earth America, and it's 1955. Now, this is what it looked like back then.
And let me ask you guys a question. Like Watchmen had kind of the weight of that property on the show and stuff, because everybody's like Watchmen, like anything you do with Watchmen, it's going to be under close like examination and stuff. Do you think Lovecraft Country might catch that same weight of like people hyper examining it more than what it needs to be?
Absolutely.
Yeah. People always do that now anyway, though.
Well, no, this is a time of hypersensitivity.
Well, that too, but also Lovecraft has like a huge following, right? So yeah, people do that. Yeah, see?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's probably when this thing hits the wider, when this thing hits the public proper, and we're around episode 2 or 3, we're going to be looking at folks that are going to be looking up from their stack of Arkham Mythos books. We're like, wait a minute, this show's going on. And either they're going to find the things to love about it, or they're like, but actually...
Right. That part. Yep.
But
we're going to get that dude.
That's the conversation we want. That's the kind of stuff Jordan Peele likes to see.
I don't think that there's going to be a Lovecraft proper weight, because the person that wrote this book was not H.P. Lovecraft.
Right.
So there is a buffer, because it's not based on a Lovecraft book. It's based on a book that was based on a Lovecraft book that was changed into a TV show. So there'll probably be a little bit more of a forgiving of the any departure, anything.
What about the gatekeepers?
No. Gatekeepers are there, but I don't think I think for Watchmen, because I was trying to tell people who were going to watch Watchmen for the first time that there's 2 ways that you can enjoy this show. You can walk in blind and just try to get to know the characters without all the context that comes from not having read, the graphic novel, or at least seen the movie, or did a 10-minute YouTube tutorial to get up to speed or whatever. Yeah. Or you could read the graphic novel or watch the movie or something to kind of get somewhat up to speed, so that the references and the revelations and the unveilings have more weight to it. I don't think we're going to see that with Lovecraft Country, because the canon is soft, Yeah. It's I mean, yes, you can find gatekeepers, anywhere. It's like so there's really no definition for that. But I do think that the stories that are going to be told in each episode, because remember, this is an anthology. It's like it's 10 episodes. It's got an overarching mission, but it's episodic, kind of like a X-Files or a Supernatural in a way, and there's like different adventures happening episode to episode. So I think that you're going to find people who are going to, they may bicker with, how they feel the story is going if they don't like it. But I think if it's anything indicated to what we see right now for this first episode, I think that people are going to be so pleased with the representation and the stories that are being told, and maybe the chance of genuinely being horrified and scared, instead of just gotcha, things jumping out of the bushes, startle horror. I think there's going to be for a lot of that for people to sink their teeth into, and this is something really new. They're doing a lot of new stuff, and it's just how receptive are we to it? I do think because of COVID-19, fortunately / unfortunately, you're going to have more eyes on this series than Watchmen did. There was 100 places to be on a weekend when Watchmen was airing. Where are we right now? No one's late.
On my living room.
Right. We're all in our living rooms. We all got the shape of our butts. embedded in our couches, our favorite seat, by this point. So, come fall when this is airing, there's not going to be that much competition for stuff to watch and places to go. So I think it's going to have a bigger, broader audience. And it's going to probably attract some people to the sci-fi horror genre that would not normally watch it. If it wasn't Lovecraft Country with this cast and Misha Green at the head of it, I think there's a lot of Black people that might bypass it just because it's just not something that maybe we feel like we do. But I think there's a lot of things that are going to make this a more definitive series for the fall and for the era.
Well said.
You gotta watch out for us Arkham nerds, though.
Always watching out for you, Arkham nerds.
If this was a book published, if this is a book using the Lovecraft brand, it did have to go through Arkham House, which is the only organization that has the proprietary rights to Lovecraft. Anything else is like pop culture reference or something like that. But if they're using that, if it's from that book and it's using that particular branding, you are going to have the fandom that follows Arkham House, which is like half weird young guys like me and the other half weird old dudes. Like, they're going to be like, what's this I see over here?
All right, guys, we are at like the 55-minute mark on this. A lot longer than I thought we'd go. This has been outstanding. Everybody has contributed amazingly. Thank you, everyone. So before we sign off, I just kind of want to throw it to everyone with one last question. And after that last question, let us know where we can find you online. You throw your social network handles. But basically, my last question is, so after this first episode, what do you want to see now going forward, or whose characters are you looking forward to following? I know some of y'all read the books and all of that, but just what did you really enjoy and what are you looking forward to more in upcoming episodes? And then as well, after that, just kind of throw out who you are again and how we can follow you online. And as you say that, I'm going to make your socials appear on the screen so they can check you out and follow you guys, because you guys have been amazing. Thank you. So, Thomas Nerdtino, man, go ahead, bro. You're right there on my screen right now.
I am Tom Delphi of Nerdtino. You can follow us at Nerdtino, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook group, and all that good stuff, and Nerdtino.com. What I'm looking more for is, I'm a big monsters guy. Like, the tension that we've gotten from, like, just the nature of white supremacy in this era, that's enough horror. That is a significant level of human horror. But, like, man, I'm all big on those monsters and those details and, like, the weird lore, and I want to see what they play with. Are we going to see more original creations? Are we going to get Nyarlathotep? Are we going to have references to Relay, Lemuria, all this other stuff that none of y'all care about? But
he read the room.
It sounded like he was clearing his throat. That's what
I
didn't. Lozenge, brother.
But like, I want to see how much they play with. I want to see some creative looking monsters. I want to know when my tentacle god shows up.
All right.
All right.
Bree, go ahead.
Oh, so you can find me, Baroness Bree, on every social media platform, literally, and baronessbree.com. And the Fabulous Fuckery website is linked to everything as well. Everything's at Fab Fuckery across all platforms. I am interested to see how the tension between Letitia and Atticus's characters expand. I feel as though something's going to happen fun over there. And then I'm also interested to see how their uncle plays into this moving forward, because he is a little older. He's not as spry, he almost got caught by the vampire dude.
Oh man. Courtney, yeah.
Right. So I'm excited to see what happens with Courtney B. Vance's character, because I love Courtney.
Okay. Greg Burnham.
Greg Burnham on Facebook. Yeah. The Search for Sadaka, Tuskegee Airs on Instagram and Facebook, and all that good stuff. I am going to be mature here, and I'm going to be patient and allow the creators. Like, there were some things that about Watchmen, even in the beginning, that I was like, man, like really knowing the history, I was like, yeah. So, after a couple episodes, I was like, yeah. And then Marcus Williams, you guys may have heard of him. It's my business partner, co-creator, and all of that. He was like, yo, you got to start watching it again. And I was like, nah, man, I don't know. And he was like, no, you have to. So I'm going to be patient and, try to just watch. I love the first episode. Try not to love it too much because, like I said, I've had my heart broken before. But I love the first episode. I love the cast. I'm just going to be patient and let them tell the story. And I'm just going to be a consumer and consume it.
There we go.
I'm probably lying.
Sabrina and Will.
Yes. So you can find me at on Facebook as Blurred Mom and on Instagram as Real Blurred Mom. And you can also get all that on my website, www.blurredmom.com. And you can find my podcast on all the podcasts. What I'm really looking forward to is, I said this before, but like Letitia. So as badass as she was in the episode, in the book, like she was saving asses, and I really want to get to to that and a little bit more on her backstory because she talked about it a little bit in the after show, but there's like a thing about her mom and some lingering feelings there. So I'm really looking forward to that. But as Greg said, I'm gonna let it develop, and I'm not gonna get too crazy, too excited about it. So yeah.
You can hear me on the Blurred Mom podcast.
What, you have something to say?
Yeah. What you looking forward to, Will?
He is like, and that is all I have to say about that.
I'm looking forward to Letitia too. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people. Greg was talking about Watchmen and that sort of thing, and I was like, yeah, because I was a real big graphic novel fan of Watchmen. But I am going to let this show develop. I really enjoyed it. I too would like to know if Courtney B. Vance is wearing a prosthetic or not, just like Brina.
Leave him alone. Stop it.
Damn.
Got a little sad. So what?
That's my man.
As a fan of the genre, I thought this was a great episode, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season.
All right, Chris Powell, Three Black Geeks.
Yeah, you can find all of us on Three Black Geeks. At Three Black Geeks on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, any social media, you can find us there. My personal Twitter account, yes, I have my own personal Twitter account. CJ WizGeek, find me on there, rambling, talking about stuff and doing stuff, building Gundam models during this whole pandemic because what else is there to do? But yeah, as far as what I expect, there's a moment in this first episode with Atticus. He makes a phone call, and I'm curious to see what comes.
Yeah.
Kind of translates to
right.
what we saw at the beginning of the episode and how that translates to the whole show itself. Because I think that's the biggest mystery that I saw a lot of people tweet about it and stuff, but they're not. Obviously, we can't spoil stuff on Twitter, but I didn't see many people really talking about that moment in any way, shape, or form. So I'm wondering once the show goes live, how many people will catch that.
Yeah.
And because like I said, I want to see how Letitia and all those characters go, but that was the one I kind of really focused on. I was like, all right, I want to see where this goes now.
Yeah, I was very careful to be watch what I tweeted because I didn't want to spoil anything and get in trouble because Hilton has blessed us.
Yes. Put a bullseye on us like you better not talk about it.
I know, right?
There's a red dot on my chest. Let me stop talking. Where is
I was in the chat like, but what if I want to? No.
I'm gonna give you $1 million, but you can't spend it.
I mean, I don't think we're on the level of like the art people where they literally got people behind the scenes with a gun pointed to their head. Don't say anything, but it's almost there. It's almost quite there.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
We fear Hilton. We fear Hilton and Blurred Power.
I just want to thank Hilton for making me very important because I haven't been very important in like 4 months since like COVID shut down. And so I was like,
this guy.
really
What are you
pressing
talking about?
today. I was like, oh, let me get in here, get my code.
Trying to push.
Thank you, Hilton.
I can't push it. I'm trying to push the block out of the screen. I can't push it.
Greg is such a liar because he be putting out all them tweets and pictures and stuff from comics, and I'm like, oh, attention? Like, come on, dude. Every day is like, oh, what's Greg putting up now? Oh, another picture. Whoa.
Well, I will say this. This has been an amazing partnership with HBO. They have gone to great lengths to recognize the Black nerd audience and the diversity mission, BlurredCon and other organizations that we have managed to kind of bring together to kind of connect to this, to say, hey, listen, we're all a part of this storytelling, family too. We love everything, but we want to see ourselves represented. We want to see diversity and inclusion, and they recognize that, and they're going to these great lengths to make it happen. So when I got the opportunity to bring the family in, I had to reach out, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of a lot of y'all, and I'm a fan of the show. And I got to tell you, what I'm looking forward to at the show is the character development, the stories. Each one of the stories is going to be a little different. Everybody's going to get their bit of shine. And I really want to see, how they bring that to the forefront. And when it airs, I want to see it tell a story. I want to see it be enriching. I want to see everybody buy into it. I feel like this is the right show at the right moment on the right channel, and it's the right story being told by the right people. And we're the consumers that are in a position to make sure that the engagement is still there and that people are not waiting till it shows up, in reruns online and next summer before they see it. And we can support this sort of thing so that when HBO gets another opportunity to do shows like this, they recognize that these are stories that people want to see. So it's been a privilege for me, and I'm looking forward to it. And as far as what I want to see, I will tell you, Chris, she's speaking Korean on the phone. Okay. And that I knew because I was in the Army. I was in Korea, and I was like, calling somebody in Korea. How you calling somebody in Korea on a dial-up phone?
Long number when he kept going past the initial 9 numbers. I'm like, hold on, whoa. You're supposed to be 9 numbers. What's going on here, dog?
You can't call collect in 1955. You got to dial numbers. I'm like, and then don't want to talk. I'm like, okay, that's a big entrance there for something to happen. So my hope is that you guys will continue the engagement, continue, conversations. It's obviously a lot of fun. Thank you, Patrick, for shaming us with your geek wall. I really thought I had some nerdness in me, but I got to go to the store and catch up. So that's as soon as COVID-19 lifts, I'm heading down to the store. So
I definitely would love to have you at the studio.
This shit is pathetic, man. This is no good back here. So man, I'm looking forward to having these conversations in every place, in every space, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And heck, if we got to be inside, and our only way to connect is through these screens, then it might as well be talking about the stuff that we love. And who knows, this might be one of the things that we love and brings us all together to have more of these conversations, so we don't let COVID-19 be the thing that keeps us separated.
Oh yeah.
Hilton, thank you so much. Really appreciate you for gathering us all here. On behalf of everyone, thank you. And HBO Lovecraft Country, make sure you tune in. I'm throwing some of the handles online so you can follow that. Thanks again. And I'm Patrick Michael Strange. You are watching Blurs in Lovecraft Country with BlurredCon, Quirktastic, the Nerds of Color, NRW. I am signing us off and throwing it to the trailer again so you guys can watch the trailer, and make sure y'all tune in and watch it.
I love stories. Heroes go on adventures in other worlds, defy insurmountable odds. Stories are like the living thing. My father, he wrote me. Said we have a secret legacy, a birthright that's been kept from us in Lovecraft Country.
That place, it's not real.
You sure?
They don't like outsiders at all. I found more than a few stories about travelers being attacked in the surrounding woods.
By what?
Gotta go, right now, gotta go.
I know we were all meant to go through trials and tribulations. But this world is haunting us.
It'll come back around you.
It's like the devil.
The American dream depends on the question, what is reality? What is reality?